Hi, my name is Marcus,
Hi, my name is Levine.
And my name is Jessica,
and we are the co-directors for IMSG 2020.
or affectionately known as COTS. You know,
COTS,
like
like
Co
codfish.
and then D.
So, today we're going to talk to you about a little bit about the competition. Jess, we had a lot of time talking about. You look so stunned. We spent a lot of time thinking about whether we even wanted to run IMSG 2020 this year. Last year was a lot of effort, but it was a lot easier as well. Like many things with people coming down to Singapore, it was easy to organize events. This year, I think we had a lot of thinking about whether running the event online would make sense.
Yeah, I mean, like, there were so many logistics involved, you know, because we had to run online events since, January?
January, yeah. That's right.
January, and then we had a couple of other events in June as well. I think in that month we actually had two. Actually, and it was such a hassle, especially given that we had a much smaller group. Then it was like maybe 20 participants, but even then we had quite a lot of facilitators and things like that. But now this year, in terms of like IMSG, it's hundreds of people, so the scale is kind of like times 10, quite intimidating.
Yeah, and we wanted to hit new numbers, right, Levine?
Yeah, I think we wanted like definitely more teams than the year before, more nationalities, and I think at this point in time, numbers are definitely getting there and it's looking good.
So how many teams can we expect at IMSG 2020?
Well, last year we had 40 teams, right, which was an increase from the original 36. So based on last year's increase of 40, this year we're looking at 60 teams actually.
Yeah. So one of the challenges was figuring out a format that would allow us to take in so many teams and to give people the best experience ever. And so we're really, really grateful that we have the benefit of Modron to be our platform sponsor for this year, which really gave us a lot of peace of mind in going ahead to do the planning and running a competition that would be suitable for all of the teams, coaches, participants, and volunteers.
I think we're also really excited to have Modron instead of the usual Zoom, which is a different platform altogether, you know. And also the thing with Modron is that it's sort of like a very niche online dispute resolution platform instead of like Zoom, which is like a one size fits all. I mean, have you gone to the market and you buy a shirt, right? They can fit from XS to XL.
Free size.
Oh yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, so we hope you guys enjoy using Modron as much as we had working with them, getting this done, and do give them your full support. I'm really excited about IMSG 2020. How about you, Jess and Levine?
I think both of us are.
Well, I mean, excitement is one here, but then there are plenty of sleepless nights as well. Like when I wake up in the middle of the night, I'll be like, okay, it's time to wake up, but the alarm hasn't rang. And then when I look at the clock, it's like 2 a.m. But I'm like, no, I need to deal with IMSG stuff.
How's it
I
been
had
for
a
you?
dream.
Yeah.
I think I had a dream about doing role plays in my sleep. I remember dreaming about like, we're doing role plays. Then next day I'm waking up and I'm thinking like, oh wait, I need to do role plays today. I was like, oh wait, but did I do that in my dream already? I was very confused.
Very
So-
intense. Well, yeah.
Besides IMSG being online, what else is different about this year's IMSG?
Oh yes, we have quite a few innovations lined up just for you that will make things a bit spicy, even for those of you who didn't come last year. What are some of the new things that we're doing?
So you know how like when you go on online events, after a while it's just sort of like you log in at the time, then you log off at the end of it. It feels like meh, right? So what we've actually introduced is team engagements. So team engagements are actually sort of like mini tournaments. So in addition to just being winners at IMSG where you get your gold, silver and bronze, you can even win more prizes and more vouchers at team engagements. So team engagements are sort of like activities where you don't have to take part in your teams, but you can go across teams, you know, go across nationalities or even compete by yourself.
So I think it just gives you opportunity to of course win vouchers, but also at the same time it's a networking portion where you get to meet people from other countries, other nationalities that that is beyond the usual reception setting.
That's right. So this is how we're gonna run our online receptions for you.
Yeah, we really wanted to capture the essence of competitions, which is about getting to know people outside of your network, outside of your community, you know, from other countries. And we thought that just, you know, chucking everyone into another webinar may not be the best. So let's create some activities for you, and we hope you guys really enjoy what the team engagements committee have come up with.
Yeah.
So in addition to team engagements, this year we've also sort of like, we're mailing your medals and your certificates to you. So it's not just a soft copy. You get to hold it in your hands at the end of the competition and be like, yes, I did it, you know. Whereas last year you sort of like, you held something and then loads of you loved the picture ops. You can do that again this year when you receive your certs and your medals.
We should go and get the medal and show it.
And for this year, as for the design of the medals, we have a surprise. It's a
Oh, it
surprise.
is a surprise,
yes.
definitely, yeah.
Yes. You know, in line with a lot of the difficult things that have been happening around the world, we wanted to align our competition with a more supportive element to it, with a more charitable element to it. So we really went out of our way to look for organizations, at least for this year, that are based in Singapore, that are supporting good causes. So the design that we have hired to do the certificates and the medals are all coming from good places. You'll get to see what these are once you get more information through the competition booklet. And also we are committed to donating a portion of the proceeds from the registration fees to a charity, which again we'll be sharing with you more details once that's finalized, because we think in this day and age, competitions can also do a lot more to help good causes around the world. So we hope you enjoy your medals when you get it in the mail.
So for this year, I think one of the largest thing that we're doing differently is that we're holding the first ever multi-party mediation round. So it has never been done in any international mediation competition before, and IMSG 2020 will be the first to do it. So it will consist of 3 different teams mediating with each other with one mediator. And this will be, of course, our final round, round 5.
Yeah.
Well, I actually thought of making it co-mediation as well, you know, but I got outvoted. What can I say?
Too many things,
They're not
Too many
spicy
Too many
enough.
things.
They're just
Too
not spicy
ambitious.
enough.
So this is going to be a real challenge, because not only is it online, you're going to have more teams trying to negotiate, in the mediation setting. We're sure the mediator is going to enjoy, but we think that this is really making the best out of the opportunity to practice. Since moving forward, we believe that it's quite high likelihood that online mediations are going to be commonplace. And since there are, many multi-party offline mediations or face-to-face mediations, this is something that we wanted to integrate, even if it does make the logistics and the administration a bit harder. We want to make sure that you get the best experience as participants, and also for coaches and judges, you get to observe as another simulation that's been curated just for this opportunity. So with that is the end of so with that is the introduction about the competition. We hope you enjoyed hearing from the 3 of us. And now we're going to go into some more specific details about the competition format, the judges' roles, and the technical platform. So, first I'd like to share with you about the objectives of IMSG 2020. Now, like any competition, we really wanted this to be yet another opportunity for people who are passionate about mediation, passionate about collaborative dispute resolution, to gather around an event that they can expect to be run every year. More importantly, we felt that it's important to have such an event in Singapore, given that the Singapore Convention on Mediation was coming into force on 12 September earlier this year. Now, this competition we have also designed to meet several objectives. Now, first of all, we hope that this will give our semi mediators, whom you'll notice where the judges are selected from, an opportunity to showcase to the world how good they are at giving assessments, how good they are at giving feedback, and generally an opportunity for them to network. So please, participants and coaches, if you have anything at all you would like to discuss or chat with our mediators who are the judges in your rooms, do feel free to approach them, because this is also a chance for you to get to know them a bit better. Finally, we also want this competition to be an opportunity for SIMI to showcase our ability to run events, our ability to organize networking and outreach activities, and to show the world what it looks like to partner with SIMI. And we hope that by participating in this, you have a good impression. And if you don't, do give us feedback so that we know how we can improve better. Because even though SIMI is based in Singapore, we see the entire world as part of the mediation wider community that we want to serve. So we hope you enjoy the experience taking part in IMSG 2020, whatever your role may be, and we look forward to having you at more such events. Next, we are going to talk a little bit about the judge's role. Now, this is a very important role, just like in any competition. And first and foremost, judges have a role in making sure that they provide a good score, a fair score, to the teams that are participating in their rooms. There will be two categories that the judges will have to give a score for. First, mediation advocates, and second, the mediators. Now, generally speaking, what the judges will be tasked to do is to help the organizing committee determine, in their opinion, which are the best teams in the room that deserve to go on to a higher bracket. Now, this will always be a subjective question, and I know, being an ex-competitor myself, that it is very sensitive to receive scores and feedback that you feel may not be consistent with your own experience. To help get around this challenge, we are organizing detailed briefings for the judges. First, not only do the judges have to watch this video in order for them to participate as a judge, they will also have to complete assessing a mock mediation, after which we will be asking them to talk about their scores and to give us an example of what their feedback looks like. We think it's important that participants, coaches, and judges are all on the same page, so this briefing video is going to be used for all categories. Another, I would say, even more important role for the judges is their ability to give good feedback. And we are going to brief the judges as to how exactly they will do this in a separate briefing, in a separate session. But if the participants and coaches feel that any judge has given feedback that may not be so constructive, not be so helpful, do let us know, because we want to help the judges be better. Now, I'd just like to share a little bit about what we expect judges' feedback to be. There are three main things. First, we are expecting our judges to give kind and encouraging feedback. While we have pre-selected teams that have competition experience, there are also teams that are coming into IMSG 2020 or any competition for that matter for the very first time. And we want to make sure that teams have a good experience and do not feel discouraged. Second, we also want the judges to give feedback that is fair and realistic. We don't believe in giving feedback that sounds good or complimentary just because they feel obliged to say something good. We think that it's only helpful to teams if accurate feedback is provided. Third, we will also be telling our judges not to take up too much of your time and to keep to the schedule. We know that in some competitions, feedback can drag on for quite a bit. And while we want to give the judges ample opportunity to talk about the feedback to each team, these conversations, or rather those comments, can also be taken after the session has ended. So we will be reminding our judges to keep to the schedule, particularly for teams that are joining us very late into their time zone. Now, we were telling all of the judges not to reveal the results for each round to you, because all of that will be kept confidential up until the end of the 5th round. And at the end of the 5th round, we are very, very privileged to have with us honorary auditors Ernst & Young to help us make sure that the results do exactly follow the rules as stated. And so there's going to be a bit of a delay, about 1 to 2 days, for them to complete that audit before we announce the results to all of you. And for that, we'd like to seek your understanding and your patience. Let's talk about the competition format. So, in IMSG 2020, there are a couple of innovations that you will never see in any other competition format around the world. First, all teams compete in 2 categories, mediation advocacy and in mediation. Let's talk about mediation advocacy first. Teams will compete as mediation advocates for a total of 5 rounds. There are no elimination rounds in IMSG 2020. This means that you get to participate a full 5 rounds, all the way. In other competitions, you might be eliminated after the preliminary rounds, which might be as short as 3 rounds. And we felt that while this would be one way of running a competition, we wanted to make sure every team had the most opportunity to practice and also to get experience. The competition format for IMSG is a unique one. There are 5 rounds of competition in total. The first 3 rounds this year will take place from 30th October, 31st October to 1st November. After which, there will be a week of a break, and there may or may not be some activities scheduled for you to participate in. We'll let you know in due course. The last 2 rounds, round 4 and 5, will take place on the weekend of 7th November and 8th November. There are a couple of things we wanted you to know as to why we structured it this way. First, why are there 5 rounds? We felt that it's important that teams have ample opportunity to maximize their practices. And we thought that by doing an elimination format, greatly reduced the amount of opportunities teams got to show off their mediation and mediation advocacy skills. Although having 5 rounds for all teams means that this is also more work for us, we are willing to go that extra mile for the objective of giving you, the participants, the most exposure for your time. Another reason for why we are splitting up the rounds is because we felt that by running a competition online does create a lot of stress mentally and physically for everyone. And so in order for the participants to do their best, we are splitting up the rounds into 2 groups, into 3 and 2 rounds, so that you have an opportunity to rest. Having experienced running online events and participating in meetings online ever since this entire health crisis began, we empathize with how difficult it is to compete online. And so we hope that you take that week in between the 2 weekends to rest, fully recharge, and head back into round 4 with more enthusiasm and greater determination to do your best. So the last thing about this competition is that you'll notice most of the rounds start very late in Singapore at about 9:30 p.m. And the reason for this is we wanted to give our friends from overseas, particularly from the Americas, as well as in Europe, the ability to participate without having to stay up too late or having to participate at odd hours. Granted, it's still very early for our friends in the Americas, but we think that at least this reduces some of the challenge of participating in an international online competition. Now, when it comes to participating in the round itself, please make sure that you report to your round and to the links that are going to be emailed to you at least 30 minutes before the stated start of the round time. Every mediation session will run for 90 minutes. Judges will then have 15 minutes to score the teams. Finally, judges will have 15 minutes to give feedback to all the teams in their rooms. In IMSG, we have a very unique way of ranking the teams. You will notice on the scoring forms that judges are asked a series of 12 questions. And in each question, they're supposed to pick one team that they felt performed better for that question. For instance, which team did they feel represented their client's interests better? Which team did they feel came up with more creative options? And all the judges have to do is select one mediation advocate team. They do not have to give a score for the mediation advocacy teams. Now at the end, there's a 13th question that asks them to decide which team would they want to give a win to. Now, all of these criteria are then captured and tabulated into a composite index, which we call the IMSG ranking system. Using all of this criteria, we then rank these teams at the end of 5 rounds to determine which teams fall into the gold, silver, or bronze band. Here's how the criteria works. The first criteria we look at is how many wins does a team have. Assuming there is a tie on the number of wins, we look at the second criteria, which is the opponent's performance that each team has. What is opponent's performance? Well, quite simply, it is a measure of how well the opposing teams that a specific team went up against, based on how many wins that opposing teams have. In other words, the quality of your opponents, them doing well, also means you end up doing well. We believe this better represents the vagaries of a competition where certain teams might go up against very good teams early on in a competition. It also means that there is reason to support and cheer teams that you have gone up against in the past, because if they do well, you do well too. This means that there is more reason to cheer your friends whom you have competed against in previous rounds, because if they do well, you do well. If there is a draw on the second criteria, we then look at the third criteria, which is the total score based on the number of ticks or votes that a judge has given a team for each of the 12 questions from every round. These 3 criteria form the composite ranking system for IMSG for mediation advocates. Now, judges, don't panic. You don't have to do any calculation on any of these. Everything has been captured through our spreadsheets at the back end, and everything will be calculated and ranked and tabulated automatically. Now for the mediators, this is a slightly different system, but still it is a composite ranking. First of all, mediators will be given a score from 1 to 4, with 4 being the highest as to how good their performance was. All mediators will do a minimum of 2 rounds. Mediators will either do round 1 and 3 or round 2 and 4. Then, based on the performance of the mediator teams over those 2 rounds, a top band of mediators will be selected to do a 5th round as mediators. How we select the mediators for the 5th round and also what determines the final ranking for the mediators will be based on 2 criteria. First, their total score that they have achieved over either 2 or 3 rounds. And second, the performance of their advocacy teams by total score. So teammates who are participating only as mediators, cheer your friends on who are taking part in mediation advocacy, because their performance will also affect how high your team ranks for the mediator category. Now for this year, we have something different in the 5th round, as you heard Levine and Jessica mention earlier. There's going to be a multi-party round. There are some slight tweaks to the way scoring is done, but it's going to be by and large roughly the same. One of the tweaks will be, instead of choosing one team for each question under the mediation advocacy category, judges will have to categorize each team by 3 impressions, the best, moderate, and the lowest, for each question. 1 team per impression per question. And of course, at the end, there's always the 13th question, which is for them to pick 1 team to be given the win. So when this comes down to the composite ranking, every team will now have 2 teams' opponent's performance that will be factored in for their second criteria. And in terms of their total score under the 3rd criteria, they will be given a weighted score based on whether they were voted as best impression for a question, moderate impression for a question, or lowest impression for a question. Obviously, getting more votes to be the team carrying the most best impressions will carry a higher score. Other than these changes, everything else remains the same. There are no new questions in terms of the criteria, and for the mediators, nothing else changes for you. Now in IMSG, aside from the way that we rank the teams, we are also doing something different from other competitions. First, we are going to do a form of power matching. Now this is a very specific term that's used in competition formats such as the Swiss round format. And what this means is that at the end of every round, teams are continually ranked based on different criteria and then matched against other teams of similar performance level. So for round 1, because all teams are starting fresh, there will be a random assignment of teams. After round 1, half of the advocacy teams will have 1 win, the other half will not. For round 2, all teams with 1 win will be matched against each other. And for the other group, they will be matched likewise. After round 2, there will be a few categories of teams. There will be teams that have 2 wins, there will be teams with 1 win, and some teams that have yet to receive 1. Again, for the purposes of round 3, teams with similar win records will be matched against each other. It's not going to be a very strict power matching, because then this reduces the opportunity of teams that didn't get a win early to climb up the ranks. So there will be some overlap of the categories. For example, teams with 2 wins, by the time it gets to round 3, will also have that opportunity to go up against teams with 1 win. This is to ensure that there is an opportunity for mobility from teams within different bandings. So we don't want you to give up just because you feel that you may not have gotten wins early. Just keep doing your best, and there will always be an opportunity for you to move up to a higher band. Now, because of this unique format, you will not actually know your side that you're representing until the round is complete. Last year, all mediation advocacy teams only received their confidential instructions 1 hour before the start of the round. And there were specific rooms set up for all teams representing the same side to prep together. This year, because of the way IMSG 2020 is being run online, we are committing ourselves to releasing the confidential instructions within 3 hours after the completion of the last session for that round. So if the last session or the last room for round 1 ends at midnight, we are committed to giving you the confidential instructions for your team for round 2, no later than 3 a.m. Singapore time. This is to ensure that you have sufficient time, regardless of your time zone, to prepare. Now, I must say at this point that this also means confidential instructions will be circulated early, and we would like to have the commitment of all teams not to share confidential instructions with your members who are mediating. This is very important because we have to rely on trust that everyone upholds the spirit of the competition. And we must emphasize that if we find out or we receive news that there are teams that have been releasing or sharing confidential instructions with other teams, especially with their own mediators, severe actions will have to be taken in regard to that team's performance in IMSG, including disqualification. For the general instructions for all rounds, these will be sent to you at least a week before the start of that round. And at the moment, it looks like we will be able to send these instructions to you much earlier. Confidential instructions for round 1 will be shared at least 24 hours before the commencement of round 1. Now, for the last segment, I want to talk a little bit about session procedures. So we've talked about arriving at the session on time, but there are things that could happen in the course of the session. First, if there is a disconnect, there are a couple of scenarios. If a judge disconnects, do not stop your mediation. Carry on, because we will be recording every session, and for whichever segments the judge missed out, they will have an opportunity to review the recording before giving their score. Note that for every room, we will have a volunteer room session manager there to help facilitate the running of the session, as well as act as a contact person for you if you need to reach out to us, the organizing committee, urgently. These room session managers are volunteers, and we request that you respect them by adhering to the instructions they provide and not to make their life any more difficult than it has to be. They will do their best to keep time for the room, but as a precautionary measure, we also urge every team, as well as judges, to keep separate timing on their own in the event that something unforeseen happens. If we note that any team fails to adhere to the rules or to the instructions of the room session manager, penalties may be awarded. Now that covers the disconnect situations for judges and room session managers. But what about the competing teams? Now, in general, what we have put down in the rules should be broad enough to cover such a situation. First of all, if any competing team disconnects, the mediation will be paused until they get a chance to reconnect, and then they may resume. In any event, every session must end within 3 hours of it starting, inclusive of all pauses provided to teams to reconnect. More importantly, if a mediation session lasts for at least 45 minutes or more, it will be deemed to be completed for the purposes of scoring the footage or the session that has been completed so far. Even if, subsequent to that 45-minute mark, there are situations that occur resulting in teams being unable to resume. So judges and room session managers will take note that as soon as the 45-minute mark is hit, if there are disconnections that happen subsequently that result in teams being unable to resume the session, there is no need for a replacement session to be organized. Judges will score based on that 45 minutes. Please note that if a session lasts for at least 45 minutes or longer, judges have the discretion to judge based on whatever has taken place up to 45 minutes or beyond that, whichever is the longer, regardless of subsequent disruptions, meaning that the session could not be finished for a total of 90 minutes. In any event, no mediation session will be allowed to continue longer than 3 hours after it has started, including of time given for teams to reconnect due to disconnection issues. In light of the fact that IMSG 2020 is run online, everyone has a responsibility to ensure that you are in a location with a stable connection to the internet. Please let us know if you have any difficulty doing so or if you need more time to find such a location. In the event that a team fails to connect or to sustain a connection for 2 consecutive rounds, they risk disqualification from the rest of the competition. Please rest assured that disqualification is not to be taken lightly, and the organizing committee will only exercise this in the most exceptional circumstances. As far as possible, we want to give everyone the benefit of the doubt and to participate to the best of their ability. All judges will be encouraged to use a set of Google Forms that are specially designed to capture their feedback and their responses live. And in the event that a judge is not able to use a Google Form link, we will actually send them a Word document version to then be filled up manually and sent it back to us. The slides used in this briefing will be shared with you, and it will also include a small FAQ section of questions that we've received from last year and also what we anticipate some of you may be wondering about. Do have a look, and if you still have any questions afterwards, send them to us so we can provide you not only with an answer, but to share that answer with the rest of the teams. Most of you have already signed on to the Telegram channel. Thank you. It is important that we have a timely way to notify everyone of important announcements. In any event, if you're not comfortable with using Telegram, please do check the email, especially the email address that you provided us for communications coming from the team, as we will be relying on that as the main primary form of communications. This briefing will be provided to all attendees, competitors, coaches, and judges, because we believe in transparency and we want everyone to have the same information. We want participants and coaches to know what the judges are hearing from us, and we want judges to know what we have given to participants and coaches.
So thanks for the very informative briefing, Marcus.
Thanks for sitting through it.
Yeah, and I think we hope that what Marcus has shared will give you a better insight as to what is coming up over the 2 weekends, how to prepare for it, and we hope it really gets you really excited for the competition, because I'm sure all 3 of us are.
Yeah.
I mean, as you can see through the briefing and when you read the rules as well, we have tried to sort of like make it we have tried to adapt it to an online platform, you know. So sort of like what happens when a party drops out of the mediation, you know, that sort of thing. So we hope that this will actually benefit you as you move on into your competition.
Yep. So from all of us here, on the co-directors as well as the rest of the organizing committee, there's a lot more people involved in running this competition that we can't quite fit inside here because, you know, safety distancing. But we do wish to thank them, and we will do so in a later video so you get to see all of these lovely people. But for now, on behalf of the organizing committee and the co-directors, we wish you the best in your preparations, and we'll see you soon. Bye! Oh yes, Jess. So I also wanted to say that, you know, especially for myself, because it's very difficult to read people's tone when you're writing communications. So because we have been running this entire event, and we will be running it entirely online, if any of our communications to you comes across as a bit negative, or maybe it doesn't sound quite right, do forgive us. We expect that there'll be quite a lot of stress during the competition and running it, and we really are just trying to get things moving for the benefit of everyone. So, you know, in advance, I just want to say please forgive us if we do send any messages or communications that may not come across the right way. It's always been done with the best of intentions, and we hope that, you know, you give us a chance to clarify if there's anything you feel that isn't quite right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, whatever he said.